First, I invite Alex, Calpine Energy Solutions, to come up to the podium to introduce our next speaker.
I'm Alex Makler from Calpine, and it's a pleasure to be here. And at Calpine, we wear many hats, and most often I'm wearing a pretty pointy one, which is going to explain the stuttered nature of my introduction here. Many of you know our company for our extensive gas fleet. We have about 6,000 megawatts here in California. The modern, clean, efficient natural gas that's very flexible and has been useful and continues to be useful in keeping the lights on and integrating all this great renewables that we've added. Some of you might know us because of the geysers, the largest single geothermal facility in the state in terms of gigawatt hours generated. Some of you might know us maybe because of our wind program or our growing storage program. And I think many of you know us here because of the work that my colleagues at Calpine Solutions do, supporting all the back office activity for the 8 active CCAs. I think they wear green eye shades. That's their hat. But our approach to clean energy pervades goes beyond our partnerships with the CCAs. It pervades our entire business. Our first megawatt was at the geysers. Calpine has been a leader working with state policies and national policies with respect to clean energy, often being the only major power company out there in supporting the Clean Power Plan and other initiatives of the prior administration. It's our view that geothermal and natural gas provide a good, stable base for a clean energy future, and providing for, as we transition to even a cleaner future, provide a cost-effective and efficient way of getting there. So, regardless of which hat I'm wearing, I'm probably still wearing my pointy one, it's been great to partner with the CCAs. We're also looking forward to partnering with our next speaker in his efforts to create a further, more reliable and more efficient and more equitable energy system here in California. So with regard to our next speaker, Kevin De León, he serves as the President Pro Tempore of the California State Senate. He is the first Latino elected to the position in over 130 years. It's remarkable. Prior to being elected to the Senate in 2010, Senator De León served 4 years in the Assembly. Senator De León is focused on building a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable economy for the Golden State and has built an impressive record in pursuit thereof. His efforts have included legislation to make college more accessible and affordable, to improve retirement security for low-income workers, and support California's growing diverse communities. He additionally has had an extensive record on women's rights, gun violence prevention, and workers' rights, and has led the fight in the legislature to combat homelessness and to provide opportunities and protections to our immigrant residents. But perhaps his biggest area of focus has been on addressing climate change. His legislation has created the most ambitious renewable energy goals in the nation, goals which he recently announced expanding further to 100%. And he has focused on ensuring the benefits of environmental programs are shared by all communities. We at Calpine look forward to working with the Senator and to hearing more from him today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Senate President Pro Tem Kevin De León.
Put this here. And Alex, I want to thank you very much for that very kind introduction of my person. It's indeed an honor and pleasure to be here with each and every one of you here today. And I want to thank you very much for the very kind invitation to share a few moments with all of you here today. It's an honor to be here with so many industry leaders, innovators, as well as entrepreneurs, community activists, as well as activists and council members, whether from Oakland or I just missed my very good friend, Mayor Robert Garcia, just a few moments ago, but it's indeed a pleasure. Now, I know that there will be many challenges ahead for your industries, for local, state, federal, and even international climate policy. But I do take comfort in the California example. And I do think it's a model for the rest of the nation as well as the world. Now, under both Democratic and Republican administrations, going back to Ronald Reagan's time as governor of California, California has consistently pushed for cleaner air, cleaner water, as well as energy, more efficient buildings and vehicles, and stronger protections for our cherished natural landscapes and resources. And these efforts were driven not by ideology, but rather by necessity. Californians were literally sick of drinking dirty water and breathing dirty air. And the consequences, in fact, were holding back our economy. By following the science and taking common sense steps to protect consumers, wildlife, as well as our air and water, we've turned some of our biggest environmental challenges into amazing economic opportunities. We've implemented some of the most ambitious clean air policies in the nation, including tailpipe emission standards that have become the national model. We have led the change to remove lead from gasoline. And we've asked for and nearly received more than 150 waivers under the Clean Air Act to pursue even stronger policies than that of the federal government to tackle pollution. Since we passed AB 32 in 2006, our GDP has grown by over 40%, and our economy is less than 39% carbon intensive than it was back in 1990. Now, this is coming off the worst economic recession since 1929. So I want to put this in context for each and every one of you. There's only 5 larger economies than that of the United States of America, or I should say the state of California. The United States of America as a whole, in the aggregate, China, Japan, Germany, depending on the fluctuations, the valuation of the sterling, the pound, it is United Kingdom, then it is your great state, the state of California, which is the 6th largest economy on planet Earth. And if you're remotely interested in rounding out the top 10, it is France, it is Brazil. It is a nation that has recently been in the newspapers or in the news media quite a bit, and probably for the foreseeable future. It is Russia, and then it is Italy. So to put this in context, California's economy is larger than that of Vladimir Putin's Russia. And a lot of it has been driven by our policies in the clean energy space in this great state of California. And in just the past 2 years, we've passed even more ambitious clean energy and emission standard reductions, the strongest in the nation, with Senate Bill 350 as well as Senate Bill 32. These efforts have helped save American households billions of dollars and avoided fuel as well as energy costs. In fact, despite all the doomsday rhetoric we've heard over the years that, in fact, our economy would be destroyed, the gas prices would rise at the pump, then, in fact, when you open up your bill, your utility bill, that what you pay for heat or what you pay to cool your room or to light your room, in fact, would explode through the stratosphere. No pun intended. But there are only 3 other states in the nation that actually have lower bills, utility bills, in California. And remember, utility rates and utility bills are 2 different things altogether. What counts at the end of the day is when the consumer opens up that envelope or opens up that email to pay his or her bill and what you pay out of your pocket. That is what counts at the end of the day. And there's only 3 other states in the entire nation that have actually lower utility rates or bills than California. Meanwhile, we're also reducing the pollution that is so harmful to our children, to our families, as well as planet. And we've turned clean energy into a pillar of our economy that now employs over 500,000 Californians. Now, I want to put this in context. 500,000 Californians. In fact, California employs more individuals in the clean energy space than there are jobs in existence in coal mining in the entire nation. That is an incredible feat that we have created in California. In fact, I'll take it. In fact, those who espouse the principles of the free market, we're not holding the free market back. In fact, we're pushing it aggressively forward. We're disrupting the status quo, catalyzing investments, innovation, and competition, and charting a much more prosperous and sustainable economic path. We're the leading manufacturer in the nation and the single largest manufacturer employer in the state of California is Tesla Motors. In fact, the progress of clean car technology is less than 2 decades. Is a perfect example of the impact that we are having. In 2000, there were only 2 hybrid model cars that were available. In fact, only 10,000 of them were sold nationwide. In 2013, more than 500,000, 500,000 of these cars were sold. Why? Because at that time, there was only one exclusive transportation fuel supply that was monopolized by the fossil fuel industry. The vast majority of individuals in this room, I would bet, drive internal combustion cars. The vast majority. There's a big difference between what's aspirational, what is hopeful, and what is reality. I bet you the vast majority of folks drive internal combustion cars. I will go to Sierra Club and I'll ask who drives electric car, who drives a hybrid, a ZEB, what have you, etc., who drives internal combustion car, and the vast majority drive internal combustion cars. Why? Because to get to point A and point B, the only transportation fuel supply was monopolized by one sector of the market. That is changing dramatically in California and throughout the nation. Today, there are dozens of options available in every shape and size, from the Toyota Prius to the Tesla Model 3 to the hybrid Chevy Tahoe. From hydrogen fuel cells like the Toyota Mirai to full electric sports cars to buses as well as heavy trucks. The industry is thriving in no small part due to California's supportive policies. Our commitment to strong environmental protections is a leading reason why California remains the nation's capital of innovation. We didn't grow into the world's 6th largest economy and the epicenter of innovation by embracing alternative facts or pseudoscientific nonsense. That's not who we are as a state. In fact, in this state, we make public policy based on facts and based on science. Californians understand that we don't have to choose between a strong economy and a healthy environment. And in fact, we're not willing to accept either or. It's a false choice for Californians. It's a false choice for our families. It's a false choice for our children. In fact, we have decoupled, we have delinked carbon from GDP. Again, we are 39% less carbon intensive from 1990 levels, and we have grown to become the 6th largest economy in the entire world. By moving the right policies that send the right market signals, that attract the necessary capital that is critically needed to create the technologies of tomorrow that help us reach our ambitious target goals, we are proving not just to the rest of the nation, but for the entire world, that in fact having a healthy and strong economy, putting people to work, and breathing clean air is compatible with each other. They're not incompatible. They're in fact compatible with each other. In fact, the Chinese, the Mexicans, the Germans, as well as the Canadians and other nations, I can tell you, at least on a monthly basis, are in Sacramento, either with CalISO at the California Energy Commission or other agencies, CARB, for example, or EPA, learning the latest technologies, learning about cap and trade, whether your mindset is with cap and trade, with a collar, price collar, or if it's a straight carbon tax, wherever you may be on that issue. They're in our office, they are in the state capitol, at least easily on a monthly basis. So irrespective of what's happening in Washington, with Scott Pruitt at the EPA, with Rick Perry at the Department of Energy, or with Donald Trump at the White House, California is still moving forward and will not allow Washington to hold us back in no form, way, or shape. And to be clear, as we all know, we are far from perfect. We still have a long way to go to ensure that every Californian can breathe clean air and drink clean water and enjoy the beautiful outdoors for generations to come. In fact, our home state is home to 6 of the 10 most polluted cities in America for air quality, according to the American Lung Association. And every year in California, 3,600 individuals die prematurely because of air pollution, largely in low-income communities, communities of color. And asthma is the number one reason for absenteeism in our public schools. And hundreds of thousands of Californians still struggle today to have access to clean, safe drinking water. But we have made progress that you can quantify, that you can measure, that in fact you can account for. And we have a roadmap. We have a roadmap to help transform the global energy system and improve the quality of life of our most vulnerable communities. So clearly, we cannot afford to rest on our laurels, and we certainly cannot afford to backslide, especially given the Congress's and the President's efforts to roll back critical environmental protections. We're going to have to start playing defense in the state legislatures as well as courts. But clearly, we're going to have to start playing offense as well. And that's why the California State Democrats have introduced Preserve California legislative package, which enshrines, or which I should say, which ensures that no matter what the Trump administration or the Congress does, we won't lose the protection of landmark federal environmental laws like the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, the Safe Drinking Water Act, as well as Endangered Species Act. These are laws that Congress passed, by the way, with bipartisan support back in the day. And these are laws that we have taken for granted. But now we have a president as well as an EPA administrator in Scott Pruitt from Oklahoma who deny the reality of climate science. But we have to move quickly to make sure that we legally enshrine key federal protections into California state law. And we hope this package will provide a model for other states to follow. We're also moving to protect our rights under the Clean Air Act to exceed federal tailpipe emission standards and other pollution requirements. Obviously, nothing in the law has changed to justify the EPA's withholding, revoking our Clean Air Waiver Act for the state of California. The only thing that has changed is the balance of political power in Washington. Now, if this administration refuses to grant California's waiver, it would be breaking with decades of established law in science. And we will not hesitate. We will not hesitate to take any legal action. But I urge the President and the Congress to see the folly in such short-sighted decision-making. And that's why, and you may or you may not know, that's why I took it upon myself to hire the former top lawyer of the United States, the former Attorney General of the Department of Justice, Eric Holder, to be our outside legal counsel when it comes to protecting our environment as well as our climate action policies, and also to make sure that we don't separate children from their mothers and mothers from their children. And of course, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, it's not enough to play defense. We have to build upon our progress, and we have to be proactive. An essential component of that is fixing our cap and trade program. The program was recently upheld by the state appellate court, but regardless of the outcome of the ongoing litigation, we will ultimately need to reauthorize the program. And I believe that we should use that process to make improvements. The bottom line is that there will be no certainty in the market until we extend the program with a supermajority vote to insulate it from Prop 26 challenges. It's also critical to ensure that the program delivers on emission reductions in disadvantaged communities throughout the state of California, and that it sends the right market signals sufficient to reach our 2030 emission targets. Now, I want to make a few brief observations before I conclude. While it is certainly not helpful to have a hostile Congress and administration, it won't be enough, and let me underscore the following. Let me highlight, if you will, in italicized and bold. It will not be enough to halt the global momentum of clean energy. I'm still very optimistic, incredibly bullish about the future for a few key reasons. The first, as already discussed, is the power of state and local leadership. The second is the growing international momentum that even among some of the largest global polluters like China, as well as India, China sees the writing on the wall, and they're investing massive amounts of capital to try to take the lead as the world's clean energy superpower. In fact, our President Donald J. Trump, is serving on a silver platter to the Chinese the space to be the number one clean energy superpower. But California will not watch this happen idly. That's why we're stepping up and we're moving forward. And we're making sure that we remain the world superpower when it comes as a subnational, when it comes to the clean energy space. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, is the incredible innovation and leadership of the private sector. All of you in this room, the technological breakthroughs happening right now, right here in California, will reshape global energy markets for generations. Over 60% of all new energy generation in the United States came from wind as well as solar. And a growing list of Fortune 500 companies like Google and Facebook and Walmart and Nestle have all committed to 100% clean energy. There are now nearly, as I mentioned a few moments ago, there are now nearly 10 times as many people employed by clean energy in California alone than there are coal mining jobs in the entire country. And a number of politically very conservative states like Iowa as well as Texas and Oklahoma now generate at least 20% from their power from wind. And clean energy costs continue to decline, demand will increase, employment will grow, and the political dynamic will shift. In the meantime, we will continue to use every legal and political tool at our disposal to accelerate this process. Let me say this. These are extraordinary times in our history. And I do believe strongly that extraordinary times require extraordinary action. In some of the darkest hours of our great nation come some of the finest moments. And it builds character. But more importantly, it reveals character. It reveals character of who we are as a people, as a state, and as a nation. And more than ever, it's vital that California remains a beacon of hope and opportunity in a very uncertain world. That in fact, more than ever, it's time that we stand up for each other, that we protect each other, that we back each other up. And that means everybody in the eco-human system. When I'm talking about immigrants, when I'm talking about women, when I'm talking about Muslims, those who want to protect our earth, more than ever, it's vital that California remains a world leader when it comes to workers' rights and women's rights, LGBT rights, voting rights, and civil rights, and immigrant rights, when it comes to economic and social justice, when it comes to climate action as well environmental protections, when it comes to access to public education and health care to all individuals, irregardless of who you are and where you come from, the hue of your skin, the language that you speak, and yes, your legal status. This is what has made California the greatest state and the greatest nation in the world. And one individual who occupies the White House will never change the values of who we are as a great state. Now, whether your great-grandparents were fleeing famine for Ireland, or your great-grandparents or grandparents were fleeing war or persecution from other parts of the world, Europe or Africa or Asia or Latin America, this is a nation that has always been comprised of immigrants, today, yesterday, as well as tomorrow. And again, this is what makes us the greatest state, irregardless of the challenges that are before us. Because let me underscore and emphasize once again, in our darkest moments come some of the greatest hours of Americans that reveals our character of who we are as a great nation. You know, oftentimes I'm asked by the press, recently the New York Times, what is our strategy as a state? Our strategy is simple and very straightforward. It's not complicated. It's not ambiguous. It's not vague. It's not difficult to interpret or misinterpret. It is to do everything within our power to protect our economic prosperity, our progressive values, and our people. When it comes to climate action and global warming, that means we will continue to engage with other subnationals and other world leaders engaging in MOUs when it comes to climate action, export and import technologies, and export our climate leadership to other governments throughout the world. When it comes to environmental protections, clean air and clean water, the Endangered Species Act, it may be litigation, but we're prepared to meet them in the court of law, and we're prepared to win. And when it comes to the issue of immigration, separating children from their mothers and mothers from their children, I'm sure you've heard about the sanctuary state issue, which is a misnomer, by the way, because there's no such thing as a sanctuary city or state. There's no such thing as an invisible force shield, and if you get right behind it, you're protected completely. It's like when we used to play tag as children, and you sort of designated what is base. Is it a tree? Is it a lamppost? Is it a stop sign? Is it the back of a tail light of a car? And if you just reach that lamppost, you'll be safe and no one can touch you. It doesn't work that way when it comes to immigration law, because immigration law is the exclusive jurisdiction of the federal government, Homeland Security, as well as ICE. There's nothing that local or state governments can do to prevent that. But we don't have to double tax our citizens. And we don't have to allow our local police officers to be an extension of the cog in the Trump deportation machine. Again, separating children from their mothers. And mothers from their children. That's not who we are as a great state. Those are not our values. I think every Californian and every American, whether you're Republican or Democrat, points in between, or you're agnostic altogether, they deserve elected officials who are very serious with their economic policies and policies for the future. Not opportunists who walk into a room, who smell fear, economic anxiety and panic, insecurity, and exploit that and use that for their own political disadvantage. Whether you live in Western Kentucky, whether you live in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, even parts here in California, whether it's Central Valley or Inland Empire. Because it was Maria who perhaps takes care of a family in Pacific Palisades or in Bel Air or Brentwood or in La Jolla or Hillsborough or Marin. It's because of her that you lost your house, you lost your family, you lost your children, you lost your wife, and you're unemployed. And we know what the reality is. You have politicians who take advantage of this, who are opportunistic. And quite frankly, that's very parasitic to do that, to exploit, and know that you're not going to be able to deliver on any economic growth opportunities, especially those who actually do need help, like the coal miners. We saw 3 weeks ago. We saw 3 weeks ago when Donald J. Trump paraded the coal miners right behind him and signed the executive order. And quite frankly, my heart broke. My heart broke for those men who were standing behind him, who had lots of hope, who still have hope today. But instead of their elected officials, whether they're Democrat or Republican, who represent them at the local, state, and federal level, who have not been able to see what the future looks like today, because that future is today. It's present here with us. Instead of figuring out how you transition for real economic growth, jobs that are tangible and real, at the same time have better expected health outcomes for our children and for the coal miners themselves, they stay wedded, not to the coal miners, but to the coal owners and those special interests. That's why it's very important what we do. Whatever space you're in, whether you're an innovator, entrepreneur, CCA, community choice aggregator, whether you're part of our unions here, the working men and women, IBW, for example, Local 11, and other folks here today, it is very important that we come together and we back each other up. And finally, let me say, this may resonate with some folks here, it may resonate with your family members, it may resonate with loved ones or next-door neighbors. To anyone in this room, given the political circumstance of today, irrespective, again, of who you are and where you come from, for any folks here who've been bullied, who've been demeaned, who've been downsized, or told outright that they're dispensable just because they're different, know one thing. As long as I'm at the helm of the California State Senate, this great state, your state, will stand behind each and every one of you. We will never abandon you. We have an incredible task before us, unlike anything we've ever seen before. For the baby boomers in this room, I can tell you this, Nixon and Watergate is nothing compared to this. That is nothing. Richard Nixon is a choir boy in comparison. We will stand behind each and every one of you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. God bless you, and God bless the great state of California. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Einstein.